1726. The titular character is Lemuel Gulliver, and he visits strange worlds. In one of these fictitious worlds, known as Lilliput, the locals observe Gulliver and try to make sense of this unusual traveler. As was perfectly normal in 1726, Gulliver would frequently pull out his pocket watch when he wanted to know what time it was. The locals, having never seen anything like a timepiece before, concluded that this small thing he looks at all day must be his god, due to how frequently he consults it. The lesson to Gulliver is that he should not be quite so obsessed with finding out what time it is. And the lesson to us is to be a little less beholden to the hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute developments of tragedy, or the replaying of tragedy. Back to the localized embargoes of support for guardians. People in the United States are free to leave their jobs they don't like. People that no longer like where they live can move. And please remember that you can also move online. It's a big, big internet. Maybe you start to specialize in your social media. There are social media sites for musicians, knitters, car enthusiasts, ad infinitum. Just move if you don't like your impression of the site or network. It's a very, very big, big internet. Hey, why not think of the internet like food? Do you want the convenient, mass-produced stuff with plenty of ingredients that have been proven to cause cancer in laboratory animals? Or would you rather shop around for something more nutritious, organic, and local? After all, you are what you eat. Part 2 of 2. 2435. Big Tech and its mailman delivery boy issue. So to immediately demystify things, I arrived at the figure of 2435 by adding 1984 and 451. You see, Fahrenheit 451 was a book by Ray Bradbury, and it was first published in 1953 about a dystopia where books are being burned. Apparently, paper requires a minimum temperature of 451 degrees Fahrenheit to burn. For Steel Plaza podcast listeners outside of the United States, that's 233 degrees Celsius. And just to be thorough, it comes out to about 273 degrees in Kelvin. 1984 was arguably the most influential work by British author George Orwell. It's about a different manifestation of a similar dystopia. Orwell's last work was first published in 1949. The main character of 1984 is Winston Smith. Remember that name. It's his job to very selectively edit and simply remove information from public databases, to wit, from all databases. Winston's employer was the Ministry of Truth, and Winston specifically reported to ENGSOC, the English Socialist Party of Oceania. Tech giants are apparently also denying access to their own private cloud drives. I can't imagine that's going to be very good for sales. The virtual burning of your own private books. The wholesale removal of information that does not suit the largest, most powerful organizations. If you'll remember from previous installments of Andy's Philosophy Corner, Johannes Gutenberg was the tech genius who essentially took book printing from 2G to 5G. Ah, the good old days. Johannes was happy to make it so lots more people could read and learn new things. Going back several hundred years to 1440, there are many well-documented accounts of the new Gutenberg printing presses being outlawed and books banned. And certainly many of these same tyrants doing the banning also tried to prevent their subjects from ever becoming educated and informed. Going back to 613 AD, the Persian generals Sharbaraz and Shahin ravaged through what used to be the old Roman Empire. Alexandria fell in 619 AD, and the Library of Alexandria was burned to the ground. The greatest living repository of information, thought, philosophy, music, poetry, literature, everything, brought to 451 degrees Fahrenheit. And here was the rationale. If the books in this library agree with our beliefs, we don't need them, and we can just burn it to the ground. Alternately, if the books in this library contradict what we believe, well, we must burn it to the ground. You see how that works? There's some 7th century logic for you. It's impossible to say for sure, but had all of that knowledge survived and could have continually been freely shared, we'd probably have a few Taco Bells on Mars by now. In June of 2020, I've been appalled at the tech giants deleting and removing more and more and more information from the internet. That's your job. Google, you are nothing more than Winston Smith. You will quickly lose the mandate of the masses. Listeners, read the book Life After Google by George Gilder. Once more for clarity, read the book Life After Google by George Gilder, because Google has sort of reached their apex. Okay, if you don't read the book, at least pull up some of his YouTube videos and just sit there, watch, and learn. Your smartphone? Futurist George Gilder predicted those in exquisite detail in his 1980 work, Life After Television. That was 40 years ago. If you care about what happens next, find yourself a good futurist like George Gilder and see if you can't prepare yourself for the future. The internet tech giants have always been in a position to remove information they didn't like, but recently they have lost any shame and without any apparent reverence to free speech and its importance to the quality and quantity of human life. Permanently deleting computer files is not identical to burning books, preventing people from getting books, or burning down libraries, but it might as well be. It's the information age equivalent, isn't it? Think about why all of these authors have been warning us for centuries about just how dangerous this is and how humankind will suffer as the Winston Smiths of the world work week after week, diminishing the quality and quantity of human life on this planet. It's digital, so I guess some days they delete ones, some days they delete zeros, just to change it up. After finding out about this very recent, very robust, and very shameless prevention of communication, particularly messages about unity, I thought to myself, Andy, it's a big internet. And I decided to put on my virtual explorer hat and discover new websites for socializing, new ways to communicate, new sources of information. One thing I've been doing since the fall, I now exclusively use a blockchain-based browser. Now, this is a philosophy podcast, not a tech show. I'm not going to go all into it, but if you want a much more secure internet experience that blocks ads and trackers, and I think you do, find yourself a nice blockchain-based browser. Personally, I like Brave. I encourage all listeners of Andy's Philosophy Corner to simply dust off your explorer hat and improve your internet experience. Where's your sense of adventure? Do I have to do everything around here? Changing browsers. How easy was it to transfer all my favorites and my passwords? I think it took about 90 seconds. It's a very, very big internet, my friends. Regain your sense of adventure. Spend a little more time exploring and a little less time with the same tired old domain names. Time for something new and improved. So lastly, in Life After Google, George Gilder explains how Google and its ilk will erode in our lifetimes. When it comes to free speech, I am always reminded of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "To me, no words are sacred and none are profane." Without really going into it, American comedian George Carlin set into motion a United States Supreme Court decision which listed and identified the 7 words you're not allowed to use on TV. Check it out or revisit if you haven't seen it lately. He was brilliant. When you limit someone's speech, you're not only taking away the right of someone to speak, you're taking away the right of others to hear what the speaker says. So, what really caused my alarm? What was the straw on the camel's back for me? Well, there's this guy online, has quite a following. He's been on TV for years also. I don't want to use his real name. Let's call him Ronald. Now, Ronald recently put together a beautiful online video message calling for unity. Unity was really the only point of the message. Ronald looked around at the current zeitgeist and, like many of us, saw the need for messages about unity. Now, Ronald is known for saying a lot of really unpopular things online and on TV. Now, you'd think that the big tech giants would greenlight a message of unity at this point in history in a land that's hurting, right? Wrong. Messages of unity are being blocked. And I'll let you guess which messages always catch the green light. So, dear listeners, here are a couple major takeaways for you on this installment of Andy's Philosophy Corner. 1, it's a big internet. And number 2, people suffer when communication is limited, particularly appeals for unity. I mean, let's suppose your job is to deliver something from point A to point B. You could be an Uber driver, a pizza delivery guy, or a mailman. This is how you create value for your fellow human being and serve them. Maybe you don't even have to move anything. Maybe your job is just to make sure the temperature stays below 451 degrees Fahrenheit in the Library of Alexandria. To make sure, quite simply, that something is not destroyed. Instead, you receive orders to immediately destroy or prevent the delivery of information. The delivery is never made. You ensure that people cannot simply communicate with each other. You suck, and do not expect history to have a favorable opinion of your life's work. All right, thank you very much for your time, and before we go, I've got to hear this just one more time.
Don your togas, grab your towel, and come on out to the 42nd Annual Plato Symposium and Thought Pool this Saturday. See Karl Marx and his working class revolution. Don't miss Socrates and his sands of the hourglass. See Friedrich Nietzsche jump the pit of chaos. Catch the excitement of Thomas Aquinas and his amazing holy water escape. And our main event, Ayn Rand versus Hannah Arendt. in a cello wrestling spectacular. Sigmund Freud calls it